Here it comes.
Showing your
Where'd you
age.
get that little tray there?
All right, fifth action item tonight is,
No, Harry was saying that was.
we're gonna start back up.
Okay.
Fifth action item tonight is the adoption of an electric interconnection policy. As I've discussed, probably in the last 3 or 4 months, there's a lot of buzz in the industry right now regarding distributive generation, or the ability for electric customers to produce their own energy while being interconnected to the grid and offsetting their load, or potentially selling us electricity. And an example of this would be rooftop solar. This was one of the primary topics at this past year's APPA National Conference. And we're actually at the point where the APPA through the RP3 program is saying that the need for an electric interconnection policy is so great that it's actually on the requirements for the RP3 application process. So the reason the need for this policy the need for this policy is twofold. First, like I said, distributive generation is becoming more and more common. And second, as you've probably all seen, the policy is very, very, very lengthy and complex and detailed. And there have been utilities that have not had policies in place. A customer comes to them and says, well, I want to install rooftop solar or wind or some other form of energy, and I'd like to be a distributed generation customer. And they say, okay, well, we need to develop a policy for this. And then they come back to them with a 20-page policy, and it looks like they're punishing the customer for wanting to install distributed generation because there's so many requirements and it's complex, and to make sure they jump through all the right hoops. So the APPA is recommending, instead of being reactive to what's coming, be proactive, develop a policy that meets the needs of our utility, so that if somebody comes to us and says, yep, we've thought about this, we have a policy in place, and we'd be happy for you to go this route, but this is what you need to do to comply. So Tom has been a huge proponent of this electric interconnection policy. Although he's part-time, he still has a lot of great ideas and knows what's going on in the RP3 front. And going to the APPA conference this past June, it's just very evident that we need something in place. So Tom actually knows of many utilities who have awesome policies, and Marquette in the Upper Peninsula had electric distributive generation policy, and Anna reached out to the head of their customer service, and they gave us full permission to use that policy and adapt it to be our own. So Tom and Ryan have reviewed this. We've sent it to our engineers, GRP, and they commented and made a few changes, specifically stricter requirements of what our rights are in terms of inspecting their generation unit. The policy is over 20 pages long, and I'm not going to go through everything in detail. I think this is where we have to trust our engineers, Ryan and Tom, that this is a good policy. But really what it does is and I wrote this in the memo, it spells out exactly how a customer must go about installing their generating unit, how large we will allow it to be, what safety measures need to be put in place, and what our rights are as a utility if they would like to pursue installing a distributed generating unit. So that's really what the policy is doing at a macro level, and there's a lot of little nuances about how they go about doing that. So it's my recommendation that the board adopt this electric interconnection agreement. It would be added to our engineering and operating policies as policy 6-10. Do you have any specific questions for technical purposes? Ryan or Tom would be your people.
Just my,
Can it be new? No nuclear. I don't think any of them. I don't think you can get a nuclear facility at 20 kW or less.
I'll wait till the science.
Are you interested, Barry?
This policy is like if I took my building and I buy the building next to me and I put solar all up on my roof, and I can create more
Yes.
energy than I can use, sell it back into the line.
This is the
This would
policy
be the
with how you will
policy.
go about connecting to us in the coming months. And I meant to mention this earlier, Mark will actually be developing a net metering or a solar rate for us. So this needs to be put in place, and it gives the customer the ability to even connect to our system And then once they're connected, if they did sell back, that would be a separate component that we would come back to. If, I didn't want to go ahead and have a rate approved if the board didn't adopt this policy. I mean, what's the point of having a rate if we don't allow customers to connect? Does that make sense?
My only comment on this was that you mentioned that, well, we don't want to have to hand them a 20-page thing and, you know, scare them off, but then here's a 20-page policy that's, they have to digest. Can we at least give them like a one-page checklist or something that, I'm just thinking if it's homeowners that are going to try to put on solar panels or little windmills or whatever that people want to do, I don't want to discourage them from that or just, you know, make it seem like we're trying to be unwelcoming because that's the opposite, but because there's some way we could kind of say, here's the 6 steps you have to take. There's going to be a big document to go through with, you know,
Right.
just so that their first impression is not, you know, plop, here's a 20-page thing. It's,
Yeah, I imagine we could come up with something, but I also anticipate anyone actually doing a project like this and to interconnect with us will need to hire like a licensed electrician, and they will be able to understand what we're saying in this document too. Wouldn't you agree, Ryan?
I would agree with that. Yeah, if you're going to go to the extremes of putting your own generation in, you know a little something about it already, so you're prepared for this kind of stuff, I would think.
okay.
You would want them prepared for this.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, they're just,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, that's,
you're going to be pretty knowledgeable with it. If you're going to go make this kind of an investment, you're going to be fairly savvy with it, I would think.
okay.
Did we need legal to look at this, or have they, or does it matter?
We didn't have legal look at this, no. This is more of an engineering thing for our system, of what we're comfortable with. Tom, do you have any input? Because, I mean, really,
Well, the only thing I would say is why we're doing this is because it has to be uniform. Ryan talked about having a contractor doing the work. Well, not all contractors are the same. They may do it their own way, but it all should be the same. So every contractor has to abide by this, so we know exactly what is going on to our system, and we're able to inspect it as well. Whereas if we didn't have this, some electrical contractor could do it this way, another one would do it another way. How would we be able to
Right.
have all these different ways of looking at it and inspecting it? So that's why it's
I
so
would want
important.
it that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is really no different than other policies we have for the more typical projects we do, right? Or any new subdivision or things like that, if they're going to run line or,
the depth or...
yeah, like the whole depth.
Yeah, this is
and all
just a
that,
new
so-
animal that we've never faced before.
Are there fees involved for these?
This is just if they want to connect and have
As-
extra power and sell it back, put it on the grid.
As a generator.
You could still, I mean, a homeowner, could they still put in their own solar power and not be connected to the grid?
Absolutely.
So in other words, it'll just reduce
Yeah, I
their
don't see
consumption,
why
but
Just-
not.
It would just
They already do.
reduce their bill, correct? I mean, or would it reduce their consumption?
No, they have to connect to the grid to do that. Unless you separate, unless they have a separate system at their own home. So
Okay.
this part of your home is gonna be low light power, this part of your home is gonna be solar, and they're completely separate. But normally what people do when they get solar is to tie into the system, and they'll never, ever generate enough to be off light power completely because of nighttime. And of course, with no sunlight, and the expense of
Again,
getting a
reason for
battery
nuclear.
system.
But in theory, they could say, these 2 rooms to my house, or this back and porch, I only want on solar. And they could do that.
Without us even knowing about it.
Yeah. Put it
Right,
on
they could,
amperage
so
breaker
but
and
once that solar power goes down, you know, then they don't have power
Yeah.
to their room.
Right.
So if they want like a solar power fridge, have at it, we don't
for
care,
it.
yeah.
Right.
But if they're going to try to connect us straight into their house, then we need a way to manage that.
Yes.
Okay.
It could be wind power too.
Yep.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
wind power coming more.
Yeah, I've actually know somebody who's
And you have to, I
trying to
mean,
design his own little windmill for his house.
you have to have this policy because if they're connected, I mean, for the safety of all and the safety of our employees and everything, because if they're on and, you know, power goes, I mean, you get backfeed.
Backfeed, yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
And if they don't know that, if they don't know that power goes out, and if they don't know that they've got solar and they could, you know, it could, yeah.
There's a lot of safety protections within this document for our own system and employees.
Okay, so are there any other questions? Okay, if hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt the distributive generation policy.
I would like to motion for the adoption of the distributive generation policy.
I'll support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, 4-0.
All right, the next action item is the adoption of a cost of service study and rate design policy. So fairly simple, and we've talked about this before, but Anna and I are proposing to add an actual section to policy for our rate schedule that states that the board will require staff to have a cost of service study and a rate design performed by a third party at least every 5 years. And the purpose for this is really fourfold: to ensure that the Low Light and Power Board and the staff are knowledgeable as to the true costs to serve each customer class, to ensure rates are designed so that Low Light and Power meets its appropriate revenue requirements, which cover numerous things: operating and maintenance, capital costs, debt service payments, make sure we have the correct levels of cash. This will ensure that our rates are designed so that certain customer classes do not subsidize the costs of other classes. And finally, ensures that Low Light and Power meets the standards of bond and credit rating agencies. Fitch, Standards & Poor's, and Moody's really actually like to see a policy that's in place so that staff is required to have this done, because they consider it a risk if this isn't done. The three things that I listed before this cause risk
The
of
risk is
utility.
it, yeah.
Yes. So this language in red would be just added to our rate schedule.
Awesome.
Okay, any questions? Okay, I would entertain a motion to adopt the cost of service study rate design policy.
I'll make a motion to accept and adopt the cost of the service study and rate design policy.
And I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
All right, next action item is employee handbook modifications. As you all remember, in July, the board approved a revised working agreement between Low Light and Power and the IBEW. There were a number of changes in that working agreement that the changes, I believe, should also be made to the non-union employee personnel handbook. For a couple reasons. I'd like to keep benefits equal between non-union and union employees, as well as keep the standards equal between union and non-union employees. So the changes that affect the handbook of the non-union employees are included in your packet. These are the exact changes that have already been approved in the union agreement in July. Anna did an excellent job really making the changes. She made an awesome little table that highlights what the change is that affects the non-union policy book and how that compares to the union contract. And then in your packet there is the actual language, and in red it shows what it'll be changed to in each policy. So if you'd like, I can go through each one, but these are all modifications that you did make to the union handbook, and we're just making them equal in the non-union handbook.
That was a great job that you did.
Well, thank you.
Aligning it all.
Thank you.
I zipped through it and I'm like, wow, this is pretty good. Very, very nice.
Thank you.
I can go through them, or
No.
we can just take it as listed in the packet.
I
I'm
think
fine with it.
they're indicating listed as it is in the packet. So, I would entertain a motion for G, employee handbook modifications.
Go ahead.
Okay, the motion that we approve the modifications to the handbook as presented here.
I'll support.
It's been moved and supported to accept the employee handbook modifications as listed in our packet. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, 4-0.
All right, eighth of a record 10 action items tonight.
Moving right along.
Material purchase for Circuit 203 project, otherwise known as Project 102 in the 5-year plan. 2 months ago, the board approved GRP engineering and service proposal for the engineering service proposal for the construction of a brand new Circuit 203. And last month, we approved the outside vendor Severance Electrics bid to do the work that our staff can't do. And within the last month, GRP issued an RFP for the material portion of this project. They issued the bid to 4 vendors: Powerline Supply, Resco, Wesco, and Irby. Initially, it looked like Irby had the low bid. However, they did not quote all materials, and they quoted incorrect wire that would not work. It was made of the wrong material, and therefore their bid does not qualify, and they were not even able to provide a quote for the correct wire that we need.
Who
So,
caught that?
what?
Who caught that?
Well, it was like a $30,000 or $40,000 price
Price
tag.
difference
So
on
it
the
was-
interview.
we zoned in on that line. Michael did, actually.
Well,
Okay.
$12 a foot for wire from everybody else, and they wanted like $4 and something a foot, something.
Yeah, and when you have
Yeah, exactly,
5,000
yes.
feet, it was
That's
like a
huge.
40,000. We're like, there's no, this is too good to be true, we said.
Yes.
Okay.
So Michael McGeehan, president of GRP, has reviewed the bids, and he's recommending that we accept Powerline Supply's bid for $68,616.75. A recommendation letter, as well as all of the results of the bids are in your packet, so you can see by line item all the materials that were quoted. This has been budgeted for in this year's capital budget. It's the last piece of the project that needs approval so that we can start working, and the project is now below budget. This came in below budget, so it's staff's recommendation to go with Powerline Supply's bid. If you have any questions, now would be the time. Unless Ryan, you have anything to say.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, I would again entertain a motion to approve this purchase for circuit number 203.
I would like to motion for the material purchase for the new Circuit 203 project number 102.
Perfect.
Okay.
And that was to go with
Powerline.
Powerline Supply, correct? Of $68,616.75.
Yes, sorry.
Okay,
I'll support.
and it's been supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right. The next action item is a material purchase for the substation capacitor bank project, Project 104. Way back in March, the board approved GRP's engineering service proposal for the substation capacitor bank project. And they issued RFPs within the last month to 5 different companies. There were 3 bids that did not come back, 2 because they couldn't meet the delivery date to have this complete by next spring before the heating season. One bid, they had an error, they didn't have the date correct, and then Powerline Supply submitted a late bid because they also had the date incorrect, and we verified that we did issue the right date. So we had one official bid, Control-X Corporation, and their bid was $72,024. Powerline did submit a bid that we're not counting, but that was $136,000. Significant price difference, and Control-X didn't realize that we weren't going to get really any other qualified bids, so from their perspective, they're still issuing a very competitive bid. And compared to other projects that Nick has seen, Nick Abratis, who's the project engineer on this project, he thought this was a very competitive price, and he wrote a letter of recommendation to go with Control-X Corporation's bid for $72,024. And this will start the timeline so that the capacitor banks can be installed in the substation before next spring, which will alleviate our power factor penalty charges that we get.
And they've committed to the required delivery date.
They have. This has been budgeted for in this year's capital budget, and I believe it came in slightly under budget. I think by $13,000. I think we had 85.
Okay,
Very good.
who wants this motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the material purchase of the subcontractor capital capacitor bank project number 104 by Controlix Corporation for $72,024.
I'll support.
And it's been supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
All right, last action item tonight, and this has been a long time coming tonight, and just in general. Over the last year, I think it's been discussed, at least every other board meeting, it's been on my manager's report. As it currently stands right now, if our lone transmission line were to go down and all power were to go out in Lowell, yes, we have 2 combustion turbines, but we have no way to start those combustion turbines, which when you have $3 million of investment, you don't look good not being able to run them in the emergency. So there is a solution to this problem, as we've talked about. Buy a standby generator that would give you black start capability to start the generator. Staff has spent significant time weighing the pros and the cons of different types of standby generators, mainly new versus used, trailer mounted versus skid mounted, how large it needs to be from a kW output, diesel versus natural gas. And after discussion and really a lot of research and analysis by Barney, he came to the following conclusions. First, that due to the low chance we're ever going to need this unit, and if we do need it, it's only going to run for approximately 30 minutes to get the turbines up and running. It's not in our best interest to spend a lot of money for new when a new one will suffice for what we need it to do. So
A used
a used one, thank you. Also, the preference is for the generator to be skid mounted. As we discussed last month, we don't have a truck that would be able to haul a trailer mounted one that Barney's able to find. And it allowed us to have far more options to choose from because there were very few trailer mounted generators to select from. The generator must be at least 550 kW to start the compressor and at least 1 turbine. And the preference was for the generator to be a diesel unit so that if for whatever reason we needed to use it somewhere else, we could move it, and a natural gas one would be kind of permanently there. So after a lot of searching, and actually last month Barney had found this, and the generator is located in Houston, so we didn't know if it was going to be still available. But it's still available, and with delivery, they're able to deliver us a 750 kW skid-mounted Detroit diesel standby generator at a cost of $31,500, which is $28,500 under budget. So it's staff's recommendation to purchase this unit. And Barney, if you have anything else to say?
Well, this unit was originally $33,500 plus $5,000 delivery. I did a little sweet talking. I got it for $31,500 delivered.
Does it have any,
It's
it's
not-
used, but it has any warranties or anything, 30 days?
It
Or
has 30 days on major parts.
Oh, that truck.
Is it got high hours on it, or?
It's got 652 hours on it. As comparison, there's a few others I found. 600 kW with 793 hours for $70,000.
Is it underwater?
Well, it was on a high spot in Houston.
Okay.
That's what they saw. That's what they told him.
That's what they saw.
It floats.
You did actually get a video of it running too.
Yeah, I got a video of it running, so I saw it running. And it was looking nice. I had pictures of it, it looks real nice.
Do you see us having to do any maintenance to get it up to 100% par, painting,
No,
tuning, or
it's all-
nothing? It's
it's
all
all
that comes
painted.
off the truck, it's ready to go?
It looks new, it comes off the truck, you can start right up and get it going. There was another one, let's see. That one has 750 hours, and they wanted 85,000 for it. That was a 75 kW. And that was on a trailer, a semi-trailer, which we cannot haul. Another one was 745 hours, 750 kW for 65,000. And these are not delivery charges either. So the one we have, the Detroit diesel, which is a good diesel, in comparison, if you had a semi with a Detroit diesel in it, it had 300 or 600 hours on it, you figure it gone 30,000 miles. So it's got a lot of life left. Diesel has run for a long time. Hopefully, we'll never use it. But if we need to.
If we gotta use it, there's an emergency.
Right.
Okay.
Will that be set up on a cycle like the generator sitting out
Like a
here where
test
you'll
here.
fire it up once a month to?
More than likely, yes.
We'll just do it on
Just
our
keep it-
own.
keep it
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
It's, it'll be all self-contained, and we do have the ability to put it on a trailer that we can haul. We'd have to purchase a trailer or have one made or whatever. But it's small enough that we could do that.
Does it ever, I didn't see anything that said what the weight was. Does it happen to have that anywhere on here?
I didn't see the weight either. They didn't know exactly what it was.
What year is it?
It's a, let's see, I don't have that right here.
Do we have the Carfax?
It's never been underwater,
Well, I just want to make sure.
Completely.
completely. It's a waterproof container.
I will point out that I did do some research on Swift Equipment Solutions, and from what I read and researched online, they appear to be a very reputable company, so it's not just some jokers that are selling us some standby generator. Now, I don't know how we're getting it for such a great price, but we'll take it.
We've got Barney though in our back pocket here too.
So,
If there's something fishy about it when it's delivered, he'll know it.
Like this.
Like
If it
fishing.
comes with fish,
I was gonna say, pardon the pun with fishing.
Sorry.
if it comes with fish, we won't.
and for the audience, we're just a little slap happy. We're not trying to,
Right.
it's been a devastation in Houston and Florida. Our guys are actually working in Florida, helping out and everything, so we understand the difficulties, and it's just some little lighthearted. But- So I would entertain a motion to make that purchase.
I'll move that we approve the purchase of the standby generator. And that's
No.
just, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll support.
And I just wanted to comment that I really liked the rationale that in that summary you wrote. I don't know if you or Barney wrote that part, but the 1, 2, 3, 4, and just summarizing why we chose what we did. That just makes it so much easier to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, and
Thank you.
so I don't have to ask any questions.
Okay,
Wow.
it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 4-0. We have a generator.
5-0.
5-0? Well, he can't vote. He's on the out.
All
He's
right.
on the outs.
All right,
so
we are
used to it.
on to the informational items of the meeting. Performance data for August 2017. Sales
You agree, right?
came in at just under $800,000 compared to $826 the previous year. You'll see that residential sales in terms of usage and dollars were down significantly. The billing days were nearly the same, but it's been a mildly hot summer, but it hasn't been, last summer was hot. I mean, last summer was more of an outlier compared to what I've seen here in 7 or 8 years, so,
It wasn't hot this summer at all.
yeah, not too hot.
It
80s.
never got to 90, did it?
One day maybe.
Yeah.
Right,
One
yeah,
day,
but last
maybe
year we
two.
were multiple
Yeah, we had a
days.
bunch of those, yeah.
But you will see that residential customers, we were up by 21 compared to the previous month and up by 66 compared to the previous year. Commercial sales were up slightly, and we actually had less billing days this year than we did last year, 31 versus 30. So that was good news, and that more speaks to just the demand of commercial and industrial customers compared to the weather. And we did have some internal generation to the tune of 21,775 kilowatt hours. Moving to the middle of the page, in June of 2017 compared to 2016, very similar, right around 7 million, 7.1 for total requirements. Our peak in July was also very similar, although it was a cooler summer. So it really just takes that one day to create the peak. It doesn't mean, the peak isn't a reflection of the month as a whole. And no update to the residential or commercial billing statistics. Any questions on page 1? Moving on to page 2. Cash and investments were up by 4.62% compared to the previous month. We're at 3.125 million. You'll see that the major changes were in the Huntington bank account, the second line item. We were up roughly $101,000 compared to the previous month. And then the Fifth Third Bond Redemption Fund, again, this is where we make our bond payments out of twice a year, and we made a $26,000 transfer into that account. And the previous month we had just made a large payment, so that's the reason for the increase. But overall, up compared to last month and up significantly compared to the previous year. Going to delinquents. The delinquent balance after shut-off date is incorrect.
Okay.
I verified that today with Megan. It's less than $20,000. I think she told me right around 18, so I'm not sure where the 36 came from, but she checked with Gail and we verified that that was incorrect because I had the same question as Perry.
That's good, but even at 18, it's still double what it was the month before. Any reason?
Yeah, there's 2 commercial customers that I'm not going to name.
Well, I don't expect you.
But yeah, there are 2 commercial customers that represent that roughly $10,000.
And do you expect payment from them?
One of them would be in real trouble just because they're located on our property. So I expect payment overall. Yeah. Delinquent balance from the previous month though was $0, and the delinquent balance at the end of the month was reduced compared to the previous month. Delinquent balance of inactive accounts was up slightly, about $500 to $400 compared to the previous month, but down significantly compared to the previous year. And the number I pay attention to most is the 61 to 90 plus days of aging analysis. We were up $11 compared to the previous month, so we were at $3,567 compared to last year at $4,539. And as you remember, we had a very, very low write-off total this past year. So it looks early on that we're on track to almost meet that or potentially even surpass that next year when we have write-offs. So any questions on the performance data? Outages, there were none. Improved our outage statistics once again. We're at 99.9971% reliability. So awesome work by staff and tree trimming and different methodologies that we're implementing to reduce outages clearly are working. That's reflected in our statistics. Moving on to the income statement. Again, we had $798,000 in sales compared to a budget of $827, so we were off slightly. But moving down to total operating revenue, we were just 1.46% under budget. And for the year, which is only 2 months year to date, we were just 1.35% off budget. Generational department, we were $2,700 over budget for the month. Or for the year, it shows again we're $29,800 over budget. All of that was accrued, so it's currently sitting in our July income statement, and that'll be reversed out next June. That's already been accrued, but to try to reverse and accrue everything on every given month is literally impossible. But with a department that's very small and we happen to incur a lot of costs that were accrued, it's just going to look funny until we get further throughout the year. But we're actually right on budget if I take into account those accruals. Purchase power, we were under budget for the month, and we're 3.36% under budget for the year. We're going to go right through the other departments. Distribution department, we were under budget for the month, under budget for the year. Total customer accounting expenses, we're actually doing quite well. The EO expenses are very hard to track, the ebbs and flows of when payments come due for the different programs, and we're only over budget because of the EO program, but otherwise we're actually under budget. And over time, we've always seen that that's trued up, and the difference is because the program runs on an annual year, we run on a fiscal year. But over time, it always trues up because we're not gonna spend more than our budget. Sharon.
Right.
Sharon does a great job with the money we have. Advertising, outside service, under budget, office insurance and maintenance, we're over budget, and again, that's, I believe final AT&T invoices are now finished, and that's the root cause for us being over budget for the year to date. Employee compensation and benefits were 1% of budget, over budget for the year, so we're right on track there. Miscellaneous expenses, under budget for the month, and just $411 over budget for the year. And then moving down to operating expenses, we're within 0.67% for the year, and we're 11% under budget. So that takes us down to net income. We had a budgeted net income for the month of $112,000, and it came in at just under $119,000, so a very, very good month. We are under budget for the year, but it's early, and we are in the black. So overall, we're in great shape. Any questions about the income statement? Moving down to the capital budget, I'm going to go to the second of the two pages, the summary page. The voice over IP phone project is now complete. There was a remaining budget of $7,873.45 remaining in that account. As that project is done, we have reallocated that money to the 4160 to 12470 system upgrade budget. And within the last month, we spent $40,000 on capital projects, $20,000 on the 5-year plan, $10,000 on our installment purchase agreement compressor payment, $1,700 on capital equipment, and then we had a vehicle equipment fund transfer of $6,666.67, which leaves us with a lot of sixes remaining. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's where we spent the $40,000 within the last year. And we have $1.134 million remaining in our capital budget. Any questions there? All right, moving on to the manager's report. I had an MPPA meeting yesterday, and it was actually in Holland. Holland offered to host, and it was cool seeing their facility and meeting some of their staff. Pretty typical meeting. Nothing of note during open session. There was some awesome discussion and an awesome presentation about potential solar options that the MPPA has been presented about. Or different vendors have made presentations to the MPPA, and they've relayed those to us. At this time, I'm not allowed to discuss the terms, the price, the vendors, but they do hope to have a solar purchase power arrangement to the MPPA, which will allow individual cities to bring back the potential to buy solar through the MPPA by the end of this year. So in the coming months, we expect to have something happen in regards to solar. And I can say that looking at our load forecast and the need for renewable energy, there is a need for low light and power to purchase solar. And even if there wasn't, for the renewable energy aspect, it's so competitive in terms of price that you almost can't afford not to start buying this energy just to diversify your portfolio, and we're getting it at such a competitive price. So expect more to come on that in the coming months. MMEA, the fall conference, will take place in Lansing on October 4th, 5th, and 6th. October 4th, that Wednesday, is historically the day that board members and staff have attended, or even council members. I believe Jim attended last year. I know Tina's attended before. Perry's attended in the past. I'm not sure, Andrew or Marty, if you've had the chance to attend. But it is an awesome...
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I
When
did.
was here
Okay.
in
Years ago in
Rapids,
Griffin,
yeah.
or
Right when it was on-
Yeah.
Yep.
Tina, you went with me last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the agenda for that conference is in your packet. Have a great lineup of classes on Wednesday. It really runs from around 9 to 3:30 unless you want to get there for breakfast and stay for dinner. But the classes run from 9 to 3:30. I know I'm going to have a lot of staff, including probably everyone sitting at this table. Barney, Sharon, Julie, and Ryan will all be attending at least on Wednesday. So I'd encourage all of you to review the agenda, your own personal calendar, your work schedule, and get with Sharon if you'd like to register. So, and I think Jim, Tina, or anybody who's attended, do you have any comment about the conference or?
Very educational.
Very
Yeah,
educational.
I thought it was great, yeah.
It
They're
was.
always-
Okay, I mean, I think it's worthwhile, but they do have a track specifically designed for board members.
Yes.
So, and it's local, it's not like you have to travel out of state, it's just one day thing, so. The APPA, as I mentioned last month, the submission of the RP3 application is due by September 30th. Tom has submitted 95% of our application, and very large thank you to Tom. He's done a ton of work on this and organizing it. We're going to streamline it for the next time around. But the last piece that he was waiting to submit was actually the distributive generation policy that was approved earlier tonight. So it's important to have for the RP3 application as well as just to have for our customer base. But Tom will be submitting that, and I think that October is where they can request more information of us if needed. And then in the coming months after that, they will let us know how we did. So, thank you, Tom. Biodigester, nothing new at this time. 5-year plan, these were discussed as action items. Really, the progress there has been issuing RFPs for the Circuit 203 project and the substation capacitor bank project. And as we all know now, these 2 items were approved earlier tonight. Other system projects. The big news is the compressor arrived last week. It's on site, natural gas compressions. Barney, Ryan, and Ryan's staff, as well as Northern Boiler, who had to do a lot of piping work, have spent, probably 4 days installing the unit. And the great news is the unit works and ran the Solar turbine. The only hiccup was, and it's no fault of our own and it's 100% correctable, there is from what I understand, a spring piece of equipment or part that was either a lemon or was just not the correct spring that was needed, and that will be replaced next week. But Barney, really, I don't want to steal your thunder. I'd like you to talk about the project and how it went and how it ran for the first time and stuff like that.
It went real well. It took a couple of days to unload trailers, swap them around, hook up piping. And then Monday and Tuesday, the people were here with all the electrical stuff. They got everything going. It was reacting slow. And what they determined, it was good enough to run the turbines, but they found that there was a bad spring in their regulating valve, which caused it to react slower than what the turbine reacted. So therefore, when the pressure fluctuated, the gas compressor wouldn't keep up and it would shut down. So they manually adjusted it during the start. When the Solar turbine was running, it was running perfect. When I shut it down, when I took it offline, that fluctuation in pressure, the gas compressor couldn't keep up and it shut down. So they troubleshot that down to a bad spring in the regulating valve. That's out of order. Should be here next week and go from there.
So that's on them. It's no cost to us, but I mean, from what you said, we were running the Solar turbine at 175 PSI and the compressor was running just about idle. It was quieter than the previous compressor. The previous compressor was running, what, at 162, 163?
Right.
So a couple benefits just right off the bat, just to have a new one. In addition to the old one being hauled away, and we're no longer paying lease payments to the tune of $69,000 a year for that. So we're actually going to own this asset in 5 years, and it will also run both of our turbines. So having this,
When we get the new gas.
well, this can already run both turbines.
Both turbines right now
Yes.
with the gas
That's there.
up to October.
September 30th.
September 30th.
Yes.
Okay.
Exact. And then, I mean, I have my own theories because if there were a true transmission failure, the people with gas couldn't even use their gas because you need component to your furnace or electric. So you couldn't even use the gas. So if there was a true outage, having this compressor coupled with the standby generator that we purchased tonight, we would be able to, I think in theory, run in a major catastrophe in the winter because consumers would have ample gas for us to run because nobody else would be using any. They've never committed to that, but I think logic and common sense just helps you get to that conclusion. So,
Where did you put the new compressor? Is that in the building?
No, it's right where the old one was, right in the back of the building. We just had a big crane there, picked the old one out of the way, put the new one in, stuck the old one on the truck and hauled her off.
That was easy.
yeah,
But it's operating very well. It has a speed range on the motor from like 600 RPM to 900 RPM. And with the one turbine running, it was just above idle. So with other turbine, that we have plenty of room on there yet. So it's going to do real well.
At some point, and maybe it's designed for that, I mean, should a minimum, a roof be put over the top of that?
In the works.
Okay,
they recommended it, and Ryan and Barney are on it.
okay.
Yep, that's a great point. So yeah, I mean, $603,000 investment. Staff appreciates it. Barney appreciates it. I think it was a very wise move, and obviously it was approved a number of months ago, so it's almost come to fruition. So very excited that we'll be able to run both turbines at once. Other items. The DEQ agreed with our requested modifications in our air quality permit to increase the thresholds for NOx and carbon. That permit, I've been talking with NTH, the vendor we've hired, specifically Rihanna and Jeff Jaros, and they indicated that the permit to install will be given to us, if not tomorrow, early next week. So that was great news that we were able to increase these thresholds. They had errors in their calculations that they were able to find for us. Ryan, do you want to talk about the other work that your guys did regarding the poles and any new services you've installed? Relocation to the bike path?
Bike path relocation stuff, we just had to move a couple poles back to the very farthest eastern edge of the road right away, just so that the bike path could go in there.
Which is on Alden Nash.
Yeah, along Alden Nash from G Drive down to Main, or M21. And one pole was removed completely because it just was no longer needed. And all of our work's done on that part. They can carry on with their construction whenever they need.
And then Ryan and staff finished installing the permanent electric services for Lake Michigan Credit Union and Ronda Tire since our last board meeting. So just another couple commercial customers that will be awesome to have online. Whitesbridge Hydro had multiple discussions with Victor regarding the proposal that was discussed at our last board meeting. I'm waiting to receive a revised proposal from him, although I think he was very shocked that's the first time he saw my analysis, and he was like, oh, yeah. There's quite a gap between what Lowell Light Power could buy power for and what I'm able to sell it for, and he's ultimately going to have to do what's best for him, and I think he knows that, but I think there's a point that we could probably work something out. I think he's waiting to see what the Michigan Public Service Commission will say regarding the case he's in. If he's willing to get a fair price, I mean, he's probably going to go with them. I think it was good that we explored it, but I'm not holding out a lot of hope at this point since I have not heard from him since the week after our last board meeting, so I haven't heard from him for 4 weeks. So, long-term natural gas supply. It has been determined with a lot of help from Rich Lambombard and digging through old records and drawings that the strip of land right out here on Riverside, between Riverside and the river, is in the city right of way. So the city does own that property, and why this is important is we needed to really determine who owns that because Consumers Energy would like to purchase that to install the regulating station that will be needed so that we can have gas 24/7, 365. There's a number of hoops that we have to go through to sell them this small section of property, and I've already talked with Dick Wendt, I've talked with Dave Zocco, I contacted Consumers a couple times in the last 3 days. We're in the process of working that out, so in the coming months you'll see this coming before the board, and it'll ultimately need to go before the city council, and I'll give some sort of presentation about this, and Consumers would like to come to our board meeting not only to explain what they're doing here how it helps us, why it's needed, but also the infrastructure improvements they're performing in the city of Lowell. And I think they kind of want to toot their own horn, but when they're installing $30 million around the Lowell area and in Lowell for Lowell, I think, they should toot their own horn, I guess. So that's what's going on there. So a lot of progress is being made. Standby generator was discussed as an action item. Community solar, the vendor that Rich Lombard and I were talking to gave me a proposal at 8.5 cents. And again, for perspective, the hydro offer we received was 8 cents. And you saw the spread between the hydro contract and what we could get it for on the market. I told the solar vendor that, try again. So they said they were going to get it down to 5.5 cents, which I do not think is possible, and it makes me wonder why they didn't come in like that in the first place. Like they're just trying to jack us around, but we'll see. I'm waiting to hear something back, and I don't think I will. SUS customer platform and application. Testing for phase 2 is still being conducted by Julie and her staff. She's having weekly conference calls. Progress is being made, but there's a number of IT hurdles that need to be figured out for the outage map and the e-bill solution. Realistically, I think it's going to be another month. When you say, Julie?
Yeah, it won't be this weekend.
It won't be this weekend.
No. And
Okay.
we're gone next week. Well,
Yeah,
most of
Julie's
us
going to be
are
at a
gone.
conference all next week.
Yeah, so I said, well,
Vacation, yeah. sure.
She's,
no, I'm not on vacation.
next week is conference week.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
It's not vacation.
Julie doesn't take vacations, even when she takes vacations.
I do. I just come in. They
Yeah,
They call me
exactly.
Tom.
Work's so much more fun if you know you don't have to work.
Well, if you can come in at 10 and leave at 11:30, it works good.
Right during tennis practice or
Right,
something.
right during tennis. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Harvest Meadows condominium development. We've completed all of our underground work. Lights, light poles and lamps will be, I believe they've been ordered with Ted Tuma. And power line supply will be installed later this year. Really, the only obligation we have from here on out is to hook up new customers when the services are ready for installation. So we've heard that 6 lots have already been purchased, which is awesome. Again, phase 1 is roughly 25 homes. So obviously when phase 2, 3, 4, and 5 come about, we'll have more work to do, and we have a line extension policy that I can apply appropriately. So that'll be awesome. Old engine room, within the last month, and actually with the help of Andrew and his wife, Drew Stuckmeyer, president of Ninjas on the Move, has approached me about our interest to lease the old engine room here at the office building to him and his company. Right now, they perform their entire business outside, and I think they're trying to get a couple very small places on Plainfield and Cascade, and they'd really like to have some place in Lowell. As part of our strategic plan action item list, we do have the engine room facility use plan in that list, and I've talked with staff, and we have absolutely no need for that space and do not see any need for that space in the future. So I heard Drew talk about Ninjas on the Move, and I met some of his investors, and they shared with me how much capital they were willing to spend to perform the modifications necessary to this building. And I really think, I don't think there's over a 50% chance, but I think if this building was made ready, there's a good chance they would do something with it. So seeing as there's interest from them, and that I had this as an action item list, an action item to be completed by fiscal year 2018 year end, I thought now would be the appropriate time to bring this to the board. My friend Tim Menard works for Colliers International in commercial real estate, and he's been doing it for 8 years. He's been out in Boston, Chicago, and New York. He took a look at the property, I've sent him pictures, he did a lot of comps, and his recommendation, we don't have to use him by any means, he did everything for free just to help me out, would be to obtain a professional commercial real estate opinion and a review of the space. This would allow us to determine potential revenue for the space. I mean, I can give you a ballpark of $3, $4 a square foot, but this would allow the board or the council to have some sort of professional document and just not some, this is what Steve thinks. And then it would allow us to calculate ROI for the space. If we would want to pursue something, what type of business would be willing to locate there based on a commercial real estate opinion, and then figure out if we actually want to remove the engines or not. So this doesn't require board approval because a commercial real estate opinion is not above my spending authority, but just wanted to let the board know that we have been looking at this. There's an interested party, and if there's no objection, I plan to get a commercial real estate opinion and a review of the space, and then use that to help determine how we can use the space going forward. Any thoughts, feedback, comments? Good idea, terrible idea?
It's fine. Good idea.
It's excellent.
Main Street's filling up, so
Okay. Well, I didn't think anybody would oppose this, but since it's a action item as part of the strategic plan, I just want to keep the board involved in progress that's being made on different items, so.
Thank you.
I will be doing that. Annual audit took place the week of August 28th. Julie and Megan performed the entire audit with the help of their staff. Peter Hafner, the partner of the team, indicated to me that it went excellent. They did Julie and Megan did a fantastic job. So very proud of them and their great work. We expect to receive a clean opinion, which is the best possible feedback that we can receive. Peter plans to be at our October board meeting to present the audit. So just want to say thanks to Julie and Megan for the excellent work that they did. So do you have any comments about the audit, Julie, or?
No, I mean, it went smooth like every year, I guess. We just have the same spreadsheets that we give and keep track of every year, and it went great, I thought. Peter was barely here, really. I mean, his workers were here. He didn't have to be here as much as normal, I thought.
So it tells me Peter trusts Julie and Megan more than me, so.
Oh, we did have that comment.
So anyway, the audit went well, and expect to see that as an action item next month. Hurricane Irma. Don't need to talk about Hurricane Irma, but I do want to talk about the crew that went down to Florida this past Saturday. Mark Drove, Rich Muchler, and Steve Shade left on Saturday the 9th. The MMEA, and the MMEA, again, for those of you who don't remember, it's the Michigan Municipal Electric Association. They handle mutual aid within the state amongst the Michigan municipals. Jim Weeks, the president, was contacted by the head of the Florida Municipal Electric Association, asking if any municipals would be willing to help. And we volunteered along with, I believe, close to 9-10 other Michigan municipals. Zeeland, Traverse City, Escanaba, I think Sturgis. I don't know them all, but we are down in Fort Pierce. It's on the Atlantic side of Florida. It's halfway between Orlando and Miami. Town of around 24,000 customers. And I did want to pass out to the board the daily updates that we received from.
So did Mark actually leave on the 9th?
No.
You know, 'cause if
Oh,
he
the day of
did,
his
I don't think he's coming back.
He didn't.
He did. He
Why?
left on Sunday.
No.
Well,
daughter
maybe
got
midnight.
His daughter
His
was
daughter
getting
got
married on the 9th.
Saturday.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Oh.
He left.
early
Sunday.
morning of the 10th.
Okay.
You're right, though.
Okay.
We're just for the, whoops.
So, good point. Mark technically left on the 10th, but he caught up to him.
Okay.
So,
We passed
left
them.
on the
We
9th.
passed them on the 9th.
Drove like Perry.
We took a bucket truck and a pickup truck down there, and these are the last 4 days of updates, and I have some highlighted portions that I just thought I'd mention. Very first line, Paul Kukovich said, "Enough cannot be said about the effort that your employees are putting in. They plan to keep our crew through at least Friday. They're going to contact Amy Zubalai from FEMA to see if they're needed elsewhere in the state before turning them loose, but you all should be proud of the group of fantastic